With uncertainty over the presidential results in the United States, candidates continue to make calls over the final outcome. Bolivia's president-elect Luis Arce was the target of a dynamite attack in the city of La Paz. Several civilians and over 80 journalists remain trapped in the midst of fighting in Nagorno-Karabakh. Hello, welcome to From the South. My name is Gladys Quesada from the TeleSUR studios in La Habana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And 2 days after the election day, the result of the presidential race in the United States is yet to be defined, with both Donald Trump and his rival Joe Biden making contradictory statements in this Thursday. Democrat Joe Biden said he had no doubt he will defeat Trump and win the U.S. presidency, and asked everyone to stay calm as votes were counted, stressing that the process is working and will know very soon. Biden's comments in Wilmington, Delaware, came after attending a briefing on the coronavirus pandemic and amid a series of lawsuits and complaints from President Donald Trump's campaign as votes cast by mail are counted and tend to favor Biden. Meanwhile, Trump spoke from the White House briefing room on Thursday, where he continued to claim that there was widespread electoral fraud, as the Democrats were seeking to steal the election from him.
The count is being completed, and we'll know very soon. In America.
And as mentioned, U.S. President Donald Trump maintains that he has won the election without any concrete evidence to support his claims that the Democrats are trying to steal the victory from him.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count the votes that came in late, we're looking at them very strongly, but a lot of votes came in late. And we think we will win the election very easily. We think there's going to be a lot of litigation because we have so much evidence, so much proof, and it's going to end up perhaps at the highest court in the land. We'll see. But we think there'll be a lot of litigation because we can't have an election stolen like this. And as everyone now recognizes, media polling was election interference in the truest sense of that word, by powerful special interests. These really phony polls, I have to call them phony polls, fake polls, were designed to keep our voters at home, create the illusion of momentum for Mr. Biden, and diminish Republicans' ability to raise funds. They were what's called suppression polls. Everyone knows that now.
Meanwhile, Democrat candidate Joe Biden stated this Thursday that he has no doubt he will defeat President Donald Trump and be declared the winner of the presidential election, while insisting that voters remain patient as the vote count continues.
So, I ask everyone to stay calm, all the people to stay calm. The process is working. The count is being completed, and we'll know very soon. In America, the vote is sacred. It's how people of this nation express their will. And it is the will of the voters, no one, not anything else, that chooses the President of the United States of America. So, each ballot must be counted. And that's what we're going to see going through now. And that's how it should be. Democracy is sometimes messy. It sometimes requires a little patience as well. But that patience has been rewarded now for more than 240 years with a system of governance that's been the envy of the world. And we're reminded again of the severity of this pandemic. Cases are on the rise nationwide, and we're nearing 240,000 deaths due to COVID. And our hearts go out to each and every family that has lost a loved one to this terrible disease.
And Abby Martin, a journalist from the Empire Files, expressed her opinion about the alleged fraud that Donald Trump said it was in the U.S. elections.
I mean, look, Donald Trump is himself a member of the ruling class, and they have plenty of Wall Street backers on their side. He just offered the biggest tax break for Wall Street billionaires in a long, long time. So that's just an absurd claim in general. He then just touted this, this blue wave that the pollsters got wrong and how they purposefully got it wrong because of suppression. But in fact, it was an amazing night for Republicans. And so they intentionally set these wrong polls forward. I don't know why they would do that. It just made them look discredited. So which is it, Trump? Was it an amazing night for Republicans, or is this a fraudulent vote? Is there some sort of massive conspiracy? Because either there's a massive conspiracy against Republicans and yourself, or somehow Republicans had a great night. So contradictory claims all over the place. He says when you count legal votes, he wins versus illegal votes, then Biden wins. I'm not sure really what he means by legal versus illegal. Apparently he thinks that any vote.
The Wisconsin Elections Commission is addressing rumors about irregularities and misleading claims about the election in key states, which could determine the presidential election result. As of Thursday, the number of votes cast looked to be nearly 3.3 million, the highest ever in Wisconsin, putting turnout at roughly 72% of the voting age population. The Associated Press called the race for Biden after election officials said all outstanding ballots had been counted, save for a few hundred in one township and a small number of provisional ballots around the state. Trump's campaign said it planned to call for a recount, which a trailing candidate is allowed to do under state law if a race is within 1 percentage point. Statewide recounts in Wisconsin have historically changed the vote tally by only a few hundred votes.
To address some of the questions head on, Wisconsin does not have more votes cast than registered voters. There were no absentee ballots found in the middle of the night. There were lawyers and observers from both parties on site and involved the entire time. That even includes at 4 a.m. When ballots were still being counted and those unofficial totals were being posted. We have not received any report of any irregularities. And again, I know that there were questions. And again, I take those questions seriously when people see that concerning a spike that concerned them, at night in those ballot totals being posted. That's because of central count and all the absentees coming in at night. They all had to be counted until they were finished, and then they all have to be reported at once. And so that's where you're going to see some of those spikes.
During a press conference on Thursday, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said the outdated legislation and lack of regulations has revealed flaws in the United States electoral system.
The equal chance of both contenders for the presidency, the obvious shortcoming of the American electoral system, which have been repeatedly pointed at by international observers, including the OSCE and prominent experts in this field, are becoming evident. This is partly due to archaic nature of the relevant legislation and a lack of regulation in a number of fundamental points.
And we'll go now to a short break, but stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Thursday night, the movement towards socialism spokesperson Sebastián Michel denounced an attack against President-elect Luis Arce in the city of La Paz. After the violent event, the mass representative is out of danger.
It has been almost an hour since we have been attacked by dynamite in our campaign headquarters, while the elect president was meeting with some colleagues. He sent a report that it exploded on the headquarters main door when one of the groups were passing by while going to strike tomorrow.
Also in Bolivia, the ombudsperson office denounced that groups supported by the de facto regime are seeking to ignore the results of the general elections held on October 18. Ombudsperson Nadia Cruz denounced the moves before various international human rights organizations, stressing that the permissible attitude of the de facto president Gianni Áñez regarding the mobilizations of extremist groups, noting that they are planning to seek to take over the state institutions in order to demand audits of the election results. In this context, the Pro-Santa Cruz Civic Committee called for a protest on Thursday, with threats to extend it to Friday in rejection of the presidential election results, in which the candidate for the movement towards socialism, Luis Arce, obtained a landslide victory with 55% of the vote. In Bolivia, the Supreme Electoral Court held a press conference to respond to the attempts of some political sectors in the country to ignore the election results of October 18.
The full chamber of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal ratifies to the citizenry that the 2020 electoral process has been clean, transparent, peaceful, and highly participatory, conducted with impartiality and independence as consistently noted in international observation reports and national platforms.
The President of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal specified the entity's response to the request made by the member Rosario Baptista, who requested an audit from the OAS.
Bolivia has a solid and reliable biometric electoral register, as noted by the OAS's extensive audit report. International observation reports prove this. Also, the absence of significant criticism in all the months in which the laboratories have been open with full access to the register by all who would like to check the consistency of the database. The reorganization of the register was supervised and approved in all its instances by each and every one of the members of the plenary chamber for months. No political organization has questioned the confidence of the register.
The Supreme Electoral Court also rejected the statements against the voting system.
We reject reference to an alternate data block with secret access not reachable for those who so far verify the integrity of the register, and which suggests to add to the list of fanciful versions of the register that include, among others, supposed millions of ghost registrations, disproportionate growth of registrations, possibility of multiple registrations of a person, and others. While there is no evidence of such assumptions, if they existed, they would have been discovered or exposed by the OAS audit, by electoral observation missions, or by any of the political, social, or regional organizations that had unrestricted access to the census during the 2020 administration.
Peruvian health authorities have declared red alert in the country on Thursday after detecting the death of 2 people by diphtheria. The Deputy Minister of Health, Luis Suarez, reported the detection of 4 people with the disease, leading to the alert on health services to identify suspicious cases. Diphtheria, which is an infectious disease that mainly affects the respiratory system, caused the death of a 69-year-old woman who identified herself as the first person to be registered with the disease after being admitted to an outpatient medical center in Lima. Suarez said health centers started to implement precautionary measures and apply hundreds of vaccines to citizens to protect the health of the entire population. At least 18 people have died and thousands more have been displaced after Ira's passage through the Caribbean coast of Central America. In Costa Rica, 2 people died after their house collapsed while more than 1,300 people were displaced by the floods. In Panama, 5 people, including 3 children, died, while 2 mining workers lost their lives in Nicaragua. The worst impacted country has been Honduras, where at least 7 people have died and another 4,000 were evacuated before the passage of the climate phenomenon. Also in Guatemala, about 50 people died because of a landslide caused by Ira heavy rains. And Guatemala was also heavily affected by Ira. Families were evacuated from their homes as tropical depression Ira triggered dangerous flooding, leaving locals to salvage they can. Officials have confirmed that at least 4 people, including 2 children, died in landslides as Ida powered through Guatemala after wreaking devastation in parts of neighboring Central American countries.
We knew this might happen as the river is near, but it did affect everyone, as you can see. Their houses, their belongings. Some managed to salvage something, but it was all wet. It's all a bit sad.
And the Pan American Health Organization said Thursday that the last week has been one of the worst on record for COVID-19 infections in the Americas.
It has been another sobering week in the fight against COVID-19. In the last 7 days, there have been nearly 1 million new infections reported in the Americas, making it one of the worst weeks on record for COVID-19 infection in our region. The United States has also broken records this past week for daily new infections reported. And we are seeing increasing trends in some provinces and states in other North American countries, Mexico and Canada, which are driving trends in the region. However, as we move towards the end of the first year of this global pandemic, we must also ensure that our mental health, as well as our physical health, remains a key consideration. Countries across our region have long recognized mental health as an important priority. And while most have acknowledged that mental health services are essential during the pandemic, a new survey conducted by PAHO and WHO shows that countries are falling short in implementing mental health services at a time when mental health support is paramount.
In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves wins a 5th straight term as Prime Minister with an additional seat compared to 2015 elections. In total, 33 candidates contested in the elections to decide 15 seats in the National Assembly. Current Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves from the United Labour Party, ULP, faced opposition New Democratic Party, NDP, candidate Godwin Friday to secure a 5th mandate. The Prime Minister's party won 9 seats compared to 8 in previous elections, and he will remain as Prime Minister of the Caribbean island for another 5 years. As a member of the CARICOM, this archipelago has parliamentary democracy within the British Commonwealth of Nations, with Queen Elizabeth II as head of state. And we have a second short break, so stay with us. Since Thursday, one of the largest cities in Nagorno-Karabakh has been under heavy bombardment. The civilian population of Stepanakert and dozens of journalists are trapped under fire. Human rights organizations asked the United Nations to do everything possible for the evacuation of the civilian population and at least 8 journalists, both local and foreign. The Rescue and Emergency Service of Nagorno-Karabakh confirmed the Azeri bombing, assuring that Azerbaijan used heavy artillery against the city of Martuni. The Azerbaijani Defense Ministry denied the accusations and affirmed that the city of Terter and the region of Agdam were bombarded by Armenian forces. French President Emmanuel Macron and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau held telephone conversations of the gravity of the situation. The United Nations expressed concern that war crimes may be committed. The French Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Yves Le Drian, met on Thursday with Niger's President Mahamadou Issoufou, addressing security issues ahead of next Niger's election, for which Le Drian justified the army operations in the West African countries, saying Niger's security is also France. President Mahamadou Issoufou received the French diplomat to discuss ongoing armed operations held by Paris, such as the operations Barkhane, the G5 Sahel Joint Force, and the national armies which embrace other countries as Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Chad. Currently, some 5,100 French soldiers of the Barkhane force are deployed in the region. As COVID-19 continues to extend through Europe with critical consequences, the director of the WHO Office of the continent warned of an increase in mortality cases and praised preventative measures being imposed in order to control the public health threat.
You know, in that sense, it takes only a couple of days to have in our European region an increase, for example, with 1 million cases. And we see little by little the mortality increasing as well. Then there is good news. For example, only with systematic and generalized mask wearing plus strict control on social gatherings, we can save 261,000 lives by the end of February in our European region. This is low tech. We do see.
The Greek Prime Minister announced a nationwide 3-week lockdown starting Saturday morning, stressing that the increase in coronavirus cases must be stopped before the country's healthcare system comes under unbearable pressure. Speaking in a news conference with the country's chief infectious disease expert, Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis explained that a suspension of activities will come into effect from 6 a.m. Saturday until November 13. The main difference with Greece's spring lockdown is that kindergartens and primary schools will remain open. Meanwhile, high schools will operate through remote learning. The Prime Minister also noted that Greece has nearly doubled the number of available intensive care units it had last year, as it prepares to deal with more patients. And the Scottish government has extended quarantine restrictions for travellers from Germany and Sweden, following a significant increase in positive cases of COVID-19 in both countries. Ministers said from 4 a.m. on Saturday, people must quarantine on arrival for 14 days. Justice Secretary Husma Yousaf also revealed ministers will be closely examining the situation in Greece over the coming week. Yousaf admitted the current situation in Greece was sparking cause for concern and added that the message remains clear that people should think very hard before committing to non-essential foreign travel. The same restrictions will apply to people arriving in England from Germany and Sweden. Syrian authorities reported the highest number of new COVID-19 cases in the past 4 weeks this Thursday. The Ministry of Health confirmed 76 new cases, bringing the total number identified in the country to almost 6,000. According to the report, just over 2,000 patients have recovered from the virus, while 3 people died in the last 24 hours, taking the death toll to 301, since the virus was first detected in the country on March 22nd. Over the last 4 weeks, the daily average of new cases has ranged between 50 and 60. The ministry called for the population to comply with all prevention measures. Syria maintained its borders closed, as well as limits on movement and activities at commercial centers and religious institutions. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Continue with TeleSUR, connecting with the Global South. Until next time, thank you for watching.